My name is Josephine Pelkey, and I was born in Florissant, Missouri in 1834-35. You know, when you get to be my age, sometimes these dates don't really stay with you. Anyway, when I was about 20, I married a fellow by the name of Peter Meininger, and we had a little boy. And in 1860, my brother Robert Pelkey, who had been out here to the territory of Montana, or territory of Washington, he came out to the Hellgate area and had a little farm, and he came back to St. Louis to get us and bring us out here. And there were 7 or 8 wagon loads of us, and my brother Robert A. and his wife Adeline, and our mother, and my husband, and myself, and our little boy. And the trip went well until we got to Fort Hall, Idaho, which is now down by Pocatello. And in crossing the Snake River, my husband was drowned. And that left me with a little 2-year-old. We came on, and we got here in August. We got here in August of 1860 to the Hellgate area. And I knew that I had to support my little boy and myself, so I baked pies, and I sold pieces of pie for a $5 gold piece per slice. And a lot of people think that's pretty exorbitant, but you have to remember that flour at that time was between $30 and $50 a sack, and there was more money and more gold dust than there were supplies and produce. So that's what I did for a while. And then in March 5th of 1862, I married a fellow by the name of George P. White. And we had a place out at Hellgate. And it was just below the town of Hellgate. And we had our first son was born in the territory of Idaho, a territory of Washington, in 1863. Our second son was born in the territory of Washington in 1864. And our third son was born in the territory of Montana. So we had 3 sons that were all born in the same territory, or in the same cabin in 3 different territories. We had 2 other children that were born in the same cabin, 2 little girls. George and I had a butcher shop on West Front Street in downtown Missoula, and we had a big disaster there. Our smokehouse burned and our barn burned, but our house didn't burn, so at least we had our home still. When I first came here, the only other white women here were my mother-in-law and my mother and my sister-in-law. And I became good friends with an Indian woman by the name of Katuna. And when the Indian War started, or what was supposed to have been the Indian War, when Chief Joseph came through, why, Katuna, she always took care of us. She took us up in the rattlesnake, and we felt real comfortable up there with her. She had a big influence in my life. What am I supposed to do with it? We live just below the town of Hellgate, and just to the west of us, one of the priests by the name of Father Grassi built the first church for whites in what is now the state of Montana. There were 2 other churches built, of course. The one at St. Mary's was built as a mission for the Catholic priest to convert the Indians to Catholicism, as was the mission up at St. Ignatius. So St. Michael's was the first church built primarily for whites. When Father Ravelli was there, he was a resident priest there for 3 years, and I was the midwife. I traveled with him and did work as a midwife with him. From our place, we could see, look down on the river where the two rivers kind of came together there just below our place, and we could see the Indians as they migrated in the spring and in the fall. And it was just such a beautiful setting down there because you could look down the river and the teepees were there, and you could just see the smoke curling up in the morning and the Indians going about their daily life down below us. It was very, very beautiful out there. George P. White, my husband, got sick in 1871, and the doctor sent him down to California for treatment, and they sent him back home, and he died in the fall, he died in 1871, and shortly after that our youngest little girl died. So I was a widow for the second time. We had a good life, George and I did. Marriages didn't end in divorce then. They ended because we outlived our husbands. We worked really hard. The husbands and the wives all worked really hard. I married Edwin D. Dukes in 1883, and we had 3 children, and the youngest one died. So now I had 7 living children and 2 deceased, and 2 deceased husbands. So, when I lived at Hellgate, I saw the first court of justice was held at Volte's Saloon at Hellgate. So I was there during that time. That was a case where a fellow by the name of Tin Cup Joe, the first trial by justice was held at Hellgate at Volte's Saloon, and Tin Cup Joe had a horse that had been up at that he had up at C.C. O'Keefe's ranch, and the horse died, and C.C. O'Keefe, or Tin Cup Joe, thought that C.C. O'Keefe had killed the horse intentionally. So there was a trial, and everybody got mad at everybody. It was the first court of justice here in what is now the state of Montana. And everybody got mad at everybody. The jurors got mad, the attorneys got mad at each other. There was ranting and raving and fighting, and some people left. And then when they came back, the final determination was that Tin Cup Joe should be awarded $40. But with the court costs, it came to $90. And I don't remember, you know, when you get to be my age, you don't remember some of the details, and so I don't remember if that was ever paid up or not. But that was the first court of justice. From our place out at Hellgate, one night I heard a lot of commotion, and this was in January of 1864. And I heard a lot of commotion, and I looked out the next morning and I saw 4 men hanging. They had put a gallows out there on the corral, and here's 4 men hanging, and I found out what had happened. The road agents from Henry Plummer's gang 3 of them had been in the saloon there, and so the vigilantes had come over from Bannock, and they had a swift and quick trial and hung these 3 road agents during the night. And after they got done with that, they went up to C.C. O'Keefe's place, and they got another road agent that was up there, brought him down, and they hanged him also. So there were 4 road agents hanging out there when I got up in the morning. The town of Hellgate was in existence from 1860 to 1865. At that time, or during that time, the population never exceeded 14. I think there were 7 buildings or something, but the population never exceeded 14, and it averaged about 12. The last 2 years of its existence, there were 8 or 9 violent deaths out there. 4 of them were the road agents. There was a murder, there was a suicide, there was just, people didn't die of natural causes out there, and it wasn't because the saloon was out there. The saloon liquor was not involved with any of it. It was just that it just happened to be that that's where they all got killed for one reason or another. After I married Edwin, Edwin got sick, and I think I've already told you that I married Edwin. We had the 3 children, and the little girl died, and Edwin got sick, and he was treated for 10 days by the doctor for smallpox. And it was in the wintertime, or in the fall. It was in October, actually, and they had to get the crops in, so everybody was out there trying to get the crops in, and Edwin felt like he ought to be out there with them. So he went out there and was working, and he told the guys, he says, you know, I don't feel good. I think I'm going to go lay down. So he went behind the haystack, and he lay down for a few minutes. Well, he didn't come back, and he didn't come back, so they went and looking for him, and sure enough, he was dead. And so I was a widow again for the third time. We outlived our husbands then. A lot of pioneer women outlived our husbands, and everybody was hard workers. And so we didn't end up in divorce. We ended up as widows usually. In the fall of 1889, I believe it was, like I said, sometimes my memory isn't so good, but in the fall of 1889, I think it was, or 83 maybe, the city of Missoula was digging holes downtown over there on 4th Street, and I was on, one of my kids was there, I guess is why I was there. That's what they told me anyway, that I was there. And so I was walking down the street one late November night, and there were no lights, and it was dark, and I fell in a hole the city had dug, and it was 4 feet deep. And I got hurt pretty bad, and of course I'd always been used to working really, really hard. And I hurt my hip and my arm and my head, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor treated me for quite a while, and he says, you know, you're always going to be crippled up from this. And that was really earth-shaking for me, because I was not used to being not able to work. And so I sued the city of Missoula, and I sued them for a lot of money. I don't remember how much right now, but you know what? I got $150 out of that, was all, and I couldn't work anymore. Short time later, another fellow was injured in a very similar accident, and he sued the city, and he got several $1,000s. But because of that injury, I just have not been able to work very much, and so you know what? I think I'm going to go sit down, if that's okay.